I have a really big head. I can sit here. Should I sit here? I can just
Ladies and gentlemen. All right.
Calm it down.
We already know where we're going tonight. I always like to mess with the local press in Miami by starting our press conferences on time. Throws them off completely. Good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the 91st winter meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I am Francis Suarez, the mayor of Miami, and the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm blessed to serve this incredible group of men and women that lead our country. Before we get started, I just want to take a minute to recognize our conference's past presidents. Burnsville Mayor from Minnesota, Burnsville, Minnesota, Mayor Elizabeth Kautz. Thank you, Elizabeth. Rochester Hills, Michigan Mayor Brian Barnett. We have a past president, my brother from another mother, who's here, Steve Benjamin from I figured out how he gets that kind of applause. I haven't been able to figure that out, brother. You've taught me a lot, but you still haven't taught me that.
Doug Palmer.
Doug, where's Dougie? Okay, there he is. Doug Palmer's here, and I also, of course, want to thank our host mayor, who was with us last evening, Mayor Muriel Bowser, who has opened up her city to us and done a magnificent job of hosting this annual event. I'd also like to begin with a quick roll call. We have a custom of letting all the mayors across America introduce themselves so that you all can get a sense of the cross-section of America's cities that are here represented, large and small, from different ethnicities in different parts of the country. Why don't we start on the right?
Mayor Ben Walsh, Syracuse, New York.
Tiffany O'Donnell, Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Alan Weber, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Lily May, Fremont, California.
Chris Barnett, Orion, Michigan.
Victoria Woodard, Tacoma, Washington.
Rex Richardson, Long Beach, California.
Jerry Dyer, Fresno, California.
Brian Waller, Piscataway, New Jersey.
Don Hardy, Mayor City of Kinston, North Carolina, the great state of North Carolina.
Latoya Cantrell, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Brian Barnett, Rochester Hills, Michigan.
Quentin Lucas, Mayor of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Jared Tran, Binghamton, New York.
Frank County, Des Moines, Iowa.
John Giles, Mesa, Arizona.
Andy Gifford, Columbus.
Tom Broderick, Anderson, Indiana.
Shang Tao, Oakland, California.
Christina Mert, Findlay, Ohio.
Scott Singer, Boca Raton, Florida.
Just call it.
Jim Brainerd, Carmel, Indiana.
Elizabeth Kautz, Burnsville, Minnesota.
Yeah. So it's my incredible privilege to be back here with my brothers and sisters from across this great country. People can easily become disillusioned by what's happening in Washington, but being around these mayors, it's easy to still have hope in our politics. I've been the president of this organization for a little more than a year now, and it's given me an even greater appreciation for the incredible depth and power of America's mayors. As I've traveled around the country and the world with my fellow mayors, I am humbled by their leadership and their sense of purpose. I have gotten to better understand their diverse perspectives on the shared challenges we face. I have seen how they all step up. For 91 years, American mayors have been gathering here in Washington every January. 91 years. It's a testament to the strength of this organization and the important role that mayors play when problems need to be solved. That's one of the things that gives mayors staying power. We put solutions before politics. We don't make easy problems hard by weighing them down by partisanship. We operate with respect, civility, and a higher purpose, and we get things done. As we'll be discussing this week, it's mayors who are delivering results on issues like climate, innovation, the economy, safe streets and safe schools, and the very integrity of our democracy. As always, we'll be sharing stories, listening, and learning from one another, crying every once in a while. We'll also be delivering messages to our friends at the federal level, Republicans and Democrats, who need to come together to be part of the solution. There are issues where cities and states cannot do it alone. We need all levels of government doing their part. That strong local federal partnership is essential if we are to break some of these partisan stalemates. Perhaps there is no better example of how a strong local federal partnership can benefit our economy than infrastructure. The infrastructure law enacted last Congress shows that bipartisanship is still possible. And now we must work to make sure that there is strong local involvement in how these resources are being deployed. For us, this is a year of implementation. It should be obvious that local leaders know best what their cities need. This has been a priority for mayors, and so we look forward to continuing those conversations with our counterparts in the administration. As always, we're proud to welcome many senior members of the administration to the winter meeting. Cabinet secretaries, agency leaders, and issue experts will be here. We also believe in the importance of working with the private sector, and so we're pleased to have many leaders of the business community joining us this week. And finally, on Friday, mayors will be joining me to meet President Biden at the White House. We appreciate that the administration recognizes the important role that mayors have driving our economy. We look forward to discussing important priorities and ensuring that implementation of these recently enacted laws represent a true local federal partnership. Look, we know that Washington is divided right now. Doing big things will be hard, but we cannot allow low expectations to get in the way of answers for the American people. America's mayors are here to show that politics doesn't need to be poisonous. We can still partner together to make America more prosperous. Mayors are here to deliver, and we will continue to make a difference every single day. Before I turn it over to my friend and our first Vice President, Mayor Hillary Schieve of Reno, Nevada, I'd like to take a minute to say a few words in Spanish. I know there's some members of the Spanish press that are here, and since I speak Spanish, it helps. Buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos a la reunión número 91 de invierno de la Conferencia de Alcaldes de los Estados Unidos. Es un privilegio estar de vuelta aquí con mis hermanos y hermanas de todas las grandes ciudades de nuestro país. He sido presidente de esta organización por poco más de un año y me ha permitido apreciar aún más la increíble profundidad y el poder de los alcaldes estadounidenses. Como alcaldes, nosotros le damos prioridad a las soluciones, no a la política. Operamos con respeto, civilidad y propósito. Como discutiremos esta semana, son los alcaldes quienes están logrando resultados en temas como el clima, la innovación, la economía, calles seguras y escuelas seguras y la integridad misma de nuestra democracia. Y como en años anteriores, nos enorgullece dar la bienvenida a muchos miembros de alto nivel de la administración a la reunión de invierno. También creemos en la importancia de trabajar con el sector privado, por lo que nos complace que muchos líderes de la comunidad empresarial se unan a nosotros esta semana. Finalmente, el viernes nos reuniremos con el presidente Biden en la Casa Blanca. Hoy estamos aquí para demostrar que la política no tiene que ser venenosa. Todavía podemos y debemos colaborar para construir en nuestra nación más prosperidad. See, in Miami, press conferences take twice as long. So I apologize. And now I'd like to have our first Vice President and incoming President in the next meeting, Mayor Schieve, say a few words.
I don't know what you said, but it sounded beautiful, sexy. First of all, thank you so much to the media for being here. It's really important, obviously, like for so many reasons, because you help us tell America's story. So really, to all of you, so much gratitude that you're here, and you help America's mayors on so many different levels. We're doing some really exciting things. Yesterday, we didn't quite kick off the conference, but we kicked off about a 3-hour discussion on mental illness and addiction. I think it's the #1 issue in every city, and if it isn't, every mayor should make it their top priority. So I wanted to say thank you so much to America's mayors, because all of you have said that they are committing to making sure that this is a top priority in our country. We are also very fortunate to work with Dr. Murthy, a friend of yours, Surgeon General, who is very passionate about mental health. I'm a big believer we've got to stop treating jails as mental health hospitals and our ERs. It's absolutely devastating, and I think mayors know this better than anyone else, and we're gonna do a lot of work on the Hill, but also reaching out to the federal government to help cities where it really is decimating us on every single level. And I think it's such a massive issue that we don't wanna talk about because it's got such a stigma attached to it, but I think also the drug crisis in this country, we've got to start addressing it. And all the mayors are on the ground doing the most difficult and challenging work. This is where it starts, and we have to move the needle here. So I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues, and thank you to all of you for being here. So I'm going to send it right back to Mayor Suarez. Go right ahead. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you.
We have some new mayors that have come into the room.
I was gonna say, former President Barnett was like informal parliamentarian, informed me that there were mayors that have walked into the room.
Yes.
Tito, you want to introduce yourself? Jane, you want to introduce yourself?
Tito Brown, Mayor of Youngstown, Ohio.
Jay Castro, Mayor of Tampa, Florida.
Mayor Tashara Jones, St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
Quentin Hart, Mayor of Waterloo, Iowa.
There we go.
Diane Marlin, Mayor of Urbana, Illinois.
Mr. Turner, Mayor of Houston.
All right.
Mike Duggan.
Mike Duggan, Mayor of Detroit.
John Mitchell, Mayor of New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Mayor Aptab, Cincinnati.
Hey,
Yes.
did we get you in over here? Duggan, did we get you in?
Yeah, Mike Duggan, Detroit.
All right. So basically, a third of America had not walked in the room. Now it's my privilege to introduce the president coming in after President Shivi will come in, Mayor Ginther, who's here with us.
Thank you, President Suarez and Vice President Shivi. It's an honor to be part of the leadership team and to work alongside all the terrific mayors that you see here today. I'm Andy Ginther, Mayor of Columbus. Pleased we've been able to gather here in DC, but I'd be remiss if I didn't begin by reminding you that our annual meeting this summer will be in Columbus for the first time in our city's history. Every one of you there. Our winter meeting here in Washington is a special one, though. Francis spoke to the sense of purpose that mayors bring to our politics. And there's no question that mayors can offer a lesson in how to put partisanship aside to get things done. It's just part of our DNA. Former Mayor of Pittsburgh used to say there are 3 kinds of people in America: Republicans, Democrats, and mayors. In this conference, commitment to bipartisanship, I think, is on full display here today. The last 2 years could not have been more productive for American mayors, working with the administration to advance our shared priorities. There are a lot of problems that we still need to solve, but we're incredibly proud of what we've been able to accomplish by making our voice heard and speaking as one. So now, as we continue to urge Congress to keep making progress, we're hard at work implementing many of the things we fought for and won over the last couple of years. It all starts with the American Rescue Plan. That law was a lifeline for so many American cities, in blue states and red states alike. Cities were devastated by the pandemic, and this law has allowed us not to just hold our ground, but to come back stronger, more equitably, and more dynamically because of it. Mayors have stood out as responsible stewards of those resources, and we continue to work with our councils to ensure we're making our cities stronger, healthier, and more resilient. We're also pleased that in last month's year-end spending bill, A provision was included that allows cities to have more flexibility in how ARPA dollars are spent, including for things like infrastructure. Of course, the bipartisan infrastructure plan that became law was another top priority for American mayors. We proved that there are no Republican potholes or Democratic potholes. We proved that we can still do big things together as Americans. And now our priority is making sure those dollars hit the right targets in our communities. One achievement that's particularly important in my community was the CHIPS and Science Act. This law will ensure the United States, not China, is driving the technology of the future and its potential to turn the Rust Belt into a new Silicon Valley. I'm grateful for the President's leadership on this issue. The Inflation Reduction Act also provided enormous advances for one of Mayor's top priorities, tackling climate change. American mayors have been fighting this battle alone for far too long. And now this law will help us shift away from carbon, cut greenhouse gases, and give our kids a healthier planet. And finally, the Safer Communities Act advanced another top priority for the Conference of Mayors, providing the first major gun safety law since the Clinton administration. There's no question we have a long way to go, but this bipartisan action shows that we don't have to accept the status quo and surrender to the idea that gun violence is just part of living in this country. Any one of these laws would represent a huge win for mayors, but taken together, they're the most successful 2 years that any of us can remember. Mayors have never had better partners than the Biden administration, and we appreciate the President's leadership. America's cities are leading and driving America's recovery. It's in part because of the strength of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm looking forward to this week and sharing and learning from my fellow mayors. We're eager to continue having mayors serve as a catalyst for action. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in Columbus in June. Mr. President.
We will be there, and we look forward to seeing the plan. So now opening it up for questions. Yes.
I'm curious, the one particular forum that is surprisingly closed is the influx of migrants to a city. So this has been a very huge issue. It's been a national issue. And I know that Mayor Eric Adams, he's down in El Paso, he spoke to the mayor of El Paso there. He wants to talk to the president about this, and people are particularly surprised why this is being held in secrecy. Why is it that the press can't be allowed in there? Why is it this isn't even being streamed? Why?
First of all, Mayor Adams is going to be speaking today, or in the course of the next couple of days, I believe. So he's going to be he is going to be here, and he's going to be addressing the press and the public. Secondly, we had the Secretary of State here today, which is the first time in the history of this organization the Secretary of State has been here. A lot of us expressed our concerns about the migration crisis that is affecting a tremendous amount of American cities, from cities like Miami all the way through to border cities and cities like New York in the far northeast. So I think we've been very vocal and transparent about how this crisis has impacted American cities, and our call on the federal government to help not just deal with the crisis, but solve the crisis, which I think are two different things, right? There's sort of the symptoms of the crisis and the crisis itself, and I think that's gonna require a very comprehensive strategy, and that's what we're looking for.
But like solving it has to be here.
Sí, cómo no.
En Miami en concreto hay mucha migración cubana, ha subido la cantidad de cubanos llegando. ¿Cómo está la ciudad, su ciudad preparada para recibir eso y cómo lo están enfrentando?
Ha sido un aumento enorme. Hemos visto uno de los aumentos más grandes en lo que son las matriculaciones en las escuelas públicas, también en los desamparados, sistema de desamparados. Yo discutí este tema con el secretario del Estado, el hecho de que nos estamos convirtiendo básicamente en una de las ciudades del borde de la frontera de México. Tenemos que tener una estrategia global y de este hemisferio para enfrentar este problema, que es un problema muy grave y que por supuesto está hecho mucho peor por gobiernos socialistas y comunistas que están empeorando las condiciones en sus países. Yes, sir.
Congratulations on being the first mayor in DC to start a press conference on time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Could you expand a little bit? You'll be meeting with the president on Friday.
Yes.
Could you expand with some specifics on what you'll tell him cities across the country need with respect to the immigration policy?
Yeah.
And the impact that the border cities and now the buses coming to places like here in DC and New York are experiencing, and can you give some specifics of what you'll ask the president to do?
Yes, and I also invite other mayors.
Mayor Gloria is chair of the
Mayor
board of
Gloria,
mayors.
who chairs this committee. We've got a chance to speak with the Secretary of State, and it'll be a similar conversation. Obviously, they understand that this is a crisis that is impacting not just border cities, but cities like Miami and the state of Florida, from migrants that are coming over the straits, the Florida Straits. And this is something that requires not only resources to help cities deal with the influx, but also a strategy. And I think the strategy has to do with figuring out how do we create more prosperity in our hemisphere so that it reduces immigration pressures to the United States. And I think there's opportunities with our supply chain that we saw was incredibly vulnerable during COVID as an opportunity to sort of reduce some of the reliance on China in producing a variety of our goods, including but not limited to microchips, which we heard Mayor Ginther talk about. Mayor Gallego also spoke about it earlier today in Phoenix, Arizona. And I believe in other cities across America, you're starting to see greater production of some goods that are in the supply chain that are vulnerabilities if we don't start producing them in the United States. The Secretary of State said to us in private, I don't think I'm saying anything out of turn, that the concept of manufacturing, which had left our country over the last generation, is something that has to come back. Microchips is an example. We used to produce 40% of all microchips. We're down to producing 10% of all microchips, and that powers everything from the phone that you're writing on right now to the camera that she's pointing at me and the one that's pointing at all of us. So I'll let Mayor Gloria, who chairs the committee, speak to what his requests are going to be, but I thank you for acknowledging the fact that we start on time.
President Suarez runs a tight ship.
Yes.
Some of us were leading the extremism and anti-hate crime forum, so I apologize for being late. I would add, as Mayor of San Diego, the largest border city in this country, that we look forward to the opportunity to engage directly with the Biden-Harris administration on the important issue of migration. I would note that this administration has been very open and very transparent in allowing us to engage with them on solutions. And one of the best ways we can show that is the dollars that were allocated in the budget process at the end of this year. Dollars that will flow to nonprofit organizations in cities like mine that are currently dealing with this crisis and making sure that as many as possible can get to where they need to go in a more humane fashion absent those dollars. I think beyond that, what I want to point out, I've lived in San Diego my entire life. I've seen the border change and grow over time. What I know is challenges have always been significant in our region. They have been exacerbated by changes in migration flows. What we truly need beyond the dollars from the federal government is comprehensive immigration reform. What we have is a situation of an antiquated system that is buckling under the changes in migration. And Congress surely sees that. My fear is that the political benefits of pointing at the problem exceed the benefits of actually solving the problem. And we as mayors have to solve problems. We have to fill potholes. We have to issue permits. We've got to get stuff done. And so I think our message is the hope that the 118th Congress can come back to town and engage in this matter. And listen, even some of my colleagues up here may call me optimistic in this regard, but I don't know that we would have thought an infrastructure bill was going to be possible. I don't know if we thought legislation on marriage equality was going to be possible. There's a host of things that this administration has been able to deliver. I hope that that open and transparency that we've had over the last 2 years can translate into additional legislative action. Again, the current situation is antiquated. The political benefits of inaction. I hope this group of mayors can change that dynamic, switch that imbalance, and make it so that action is necessary. Obviously, what's happening on the border requires action. It just happens to be that action right now seems to be more about finger pointing rather than solution making. What I know about mayors is we're about solutions.
Along those lines too, of mayors being on the front lines and showing you all together and just kind of the collaborative nature of this conference, Mayor Adams was saying that there would be discussions about helping cities like his who have been inundated with migrants, about other mayors potentially helping out and opening their cities to them and potentially subsidizing that as well. Have those discussions happened, or are they going to happen, and what will subsidizing that look
I'm
like?
sure that those discussions will happen. They haven't happened, he hasn't arrived yet, so it's impossible to have them without him. But I will say, many cities are affected by this, right? So a city like ours is affected maybe differently than New York, maybe differently than San Diego, but we have a tremendous impact, and so it behooves all of us to try to find a solution that's as comprehensive and that's as long lasting, because the last thing we want to do is be dealing with this year in and year out. I think there was someone in the back. Yes, sir.
Mayor Duggan was saying in a panel about ORPA just now that he's concerned that Congress during the budget negotiations might try to claw back the unspent ORPA money, because it's easier cut than cutting Medicaid, and I'm worried. I'm curious if other mayors are concerned about the same thing.
Yeah, of course we are. I mean, I think every mayor shares that concern. We've had to manage that. We've heard that as well. And I think
Bring it on.
Well, I think part of the reason why we emphasize the flexibility in the new ARPA is because at the end of the day, these are our tax dollars that are coming back to our cities, and we want to be able to use them as effectively as possible. Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good one. Thanks so much.